Order. Our invocation tonight will be led by Pastor David Parker of the First United Methodist Church. Please stand.
Thank you, Mayor and Council and citizens. Please join me in a spirit of prayer. Gracious and holy God, we thank you for the freedom to assemble here tonight to reflect on the status and the well-being of our community and people. Gather us tonight as elected leaders and constituents, as fellow citizens and neighbors, as advocates and friends, diverse in our backgrounds, but united in our citizenship. Grant us a wise convergence of our hearts and minds this evening through the sometimes difficult journey of robust and diverse reflections. Help us to convey our reflections tonight in ways that are civil, respectful, and constructive to our many community conversations, which refine and strengthen the outcomes from this chamber. God, may heaven's blessing and favor be upon our mayor, upon our council members, all of our city hall servants, our police and fire departments, our schools, our businesses, and all of the nonprofit partners. We are so very grateful for the opportunities and the challenges that come from the gift of our democratic and civic life here in Oak Harbor, in all of its diverse manifestations. So may we be good stewards of these times and of all of these resources, as together we seek to enhance and empower our city to a greater level of thriving for all people. And may we never forget, O God, and always be humbly grateful for this unceded land of the coastal Salish tribal peoples, who also valued equally a thriving life for all people. And so in doing this, we express our gratitude and dignity for the past, as well as our hope and our belief in a united vision for our future. Let your favor, your justice, your blessings, your peace be upon us all this night. In your holy name I pray. Amen.
Please standing, and I will lead us in the
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I don't think we need to do roll call. I can visually see that everyone is here, so we'll skip that step. The next thing is approval of agenda. Are there any suggested changes to the agenda? All right, hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. We don't have any proclamations this evening, so we're going to move right into our honors and recognitions, which we have a couple of items in there. The first being our Oak Harbor Police Department Employee of the Year. Chief Slowick will announce the Oak Harbor PD Employee of the Year. And then he will also be performing an oath of office to a promotion to a police sergeant, Scott W. Johnson.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Chief Slowick, Oak Harbor Police Department. So first I'd like to recognize our 2023 Employee of the Year, and that's Officer Ritchie. Officer Ritchie, unfortunately, is sick and isn't able to be here with us. But I just wanted to give you a little information about who Officer Ritchie is and the great things she's doing. So she's a 6-year officer. She's only been with the Oak Harbor Police Department since 2022. She previously was with Marysville Police Department, and thankfully she lives in the area and wanted to join our department. She's prior active duty Navy, and with us, she's a field training officer, an officer in charge, and she's one of our drone pilots. Officer Ritchie last year did some great things, and actually for 2 months she trained new officers, so that's a pretty heavy commitment. But on top of that, for another 2 months, she served as an officer in charge, and that's a position where that's the on-duty supervisor, and that's when a sergeant is unavailable, either on leave or away for training. And that's a tremendous thing, because we put a lot of responsibilities on our on-duty supervisors, either sergeants or officers in charge. And Officer Ritchie is very much into our officer wellness and our gym and fitness and things like that. But specifically for her, there was an incident that happened end of October. last year where her squad, C Squad, responded to a domestic disturbance where multiple shots were fired. Officer Ritchie supervised not just officers from Oak Harbor Police Department, but Island County Sheriff's Department, or Sheriff's Office, and the State Patrol. They set up containment, they searched the area and located the suspect who was hiding in a neighbor's backyard. They then continued searching and located the firearm, which was located in a different location. They secured the scene for the detectives, and in the end of all of that, it was determined that 28 shots were fired, one into a house that was occupied, and 27 into a vehicle that was right in front of the house. So that squad did an amazing job, and Officer Ritchie did a wonderful job serving as that supervisor that night. She also does a tremendous job mentoring our junior officers. So she is our 2023 Officer of the Year. I do also want to note that we had 2 other nominations, and those were Officer Jones, who's a 2-year officer with us. He's a very up-and-coming officer, and we're very excited to have him. He's very proficient in firearms and often takes officers out on his own time to do firearms training, which we really appreciate. He's very much into officer fitness and has his squad working out at the end of their shifts and the beginning of their shifts. Additionally, he has a very good tactical mindset and a calm presence on complex scenes. He recently was appointed to our SWAT team and will be a firearms instructor for us. The other person is Police Support Officer Kubler. She came to us in 2021. She's prior Department of Corrections. She serves as our backup evidence custodian, backup body-worn camera, and she does a lot of our transports to SCORE, which is our inmate facility in King County. So she plays a huge role in the support for us, and all of our officers are very professional, and they all do a great job, but these are the 3 that were nominated by supervisors. Okay, so I would like to turn this to the presentation for Scott Johnson and the promotion. So Scott, you can come up forward. All right, why don't you go right there. Raise your right hand. So I, Scott W. Johnson, do solemnly swear
I, Scott W. Johnson, do solemnly swear
that I am a citizen of the United States and the state of Washington,
that I am a citizen of the United States and the state of Washington,
and that I will support the Constitution
and I will support the Constitution
and the laws of the United States
and the laws of the United States
and the ordinances of the city of Oak Harbor,
and the ordinances of the city of Oak Harbor,
and that I will, to the best of my judgment, skill, and ability,
and that I will, to the best of my judgment, skill, and ability,
truly and faithfully,
truly and faithfully,
diligently and impartially, perform the duties of police sergeant
perform the duties of police sergeant
for the Oak Harbor Police Department
for the Oak Harbor Police Department
and the city of Oak Harbor, Washington.
and the city of Oak Harbor, Washington.
As such duties are prescribed
As such duties are prescribed
by law and ordinance,
by law and ordinance,
and I further swear
and I further swear
that I will diligently and faithfully
that I will diligently and faithfully
carry out the lawful directives
carry out the lawful directives
of the duly constituted authorities
of the duly constituted authorities
for the city of Oak Harbor,
for the city of Oak Harbor,
and that I shall abide by
and that I shall abide by
conduct rules of the Law Enforcement Code of Ethics.
conduct rules of law enforcement code of ethics.
All right, congratulations. Chelsea, why don't you guys slide up here? So this is Sergeant Johnson's wife, Chelsea, and she'll be pinning on the badge. You guys want a photo? No? Okay. Okay, Scott, do you want to say something?
Good evening, everyone. I just want to thank everyone for being here. Just want a special thanks for my wife, my 2 sons here, Monty and Leo, and then my parents for being here as well. Now, this is a big moment in my professional career here, and just now I really appreciate everyone being here. And thanks again, Chief, and to everybody else who stopped by for me as well. So really thank you. I appreciate it. So, all right.
We're going to allow like 5 minutes for you guys to take pictures and stuff. So if you, we'll take a quick break while you guys do that. So, yeah. All right, thank you everyone for indulging us for that few minutes for them to take pictures. We are going to move forward with our agenda. Next, we have community presentations, and we have a presentation by Mr. O'Carver Royalty Committee project presentation. The committee will provide a presentation regarding their service projects and activities within the community.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for having us. Today we'll be talking about the benefits of a community recreational center here in Oak Harbor. We are the Mr. Oak Harbor Royalty Committee, and we are representatives of Miss Oak Harbor, now doing business as Whidbey Royalty, a 501c3 nonprofit organization whose mission is to mentor high school students into becoming positive and achieving members in the community. Hello, I'm Lucas Smith, Mr. Oak Harbor 2023.
I'm Nolan Saltonstall, First Prince.
I am Logan Hendricks, Teen Mr. Oak Harbor.
I am Bowden Gagnon, Teen First Prince.
And I'm Brian Goodman, Teen Second Prince.
As the 2023 Mr. Oak Harbor Royalty Court, we are charged with serving our community in a variety of ways throughout our year of reign. Representing Whidbey Royalty and the City of Oak Harbor and serving as role models for the youth of our community, in just these past 2 months, we've spent our time helping out at the Big Brothers Big Sisters Festival of Trees and Teddy Bear Breakfast, riding the Oak Harbor Santa Parade, working with the Ballet Slipper Conservatory, Deception Pass Park Foundation, the Center, and the Chamber of Commerce. One of the most important ways we serve our community is to adopt a service project. During our reign, we will focus on bringing awareness to the cause and fundraising for the organization. So our first duty as royalty was to agree on our service project, which was a unanimous decision. Following a cause and platform coaching session with City Councilman Eric Marshall, we all became very interested in advocating for a community rec center for the City of Oak Harbor. So the next week after being coronated, we scheduled a meeting with Mr. Marshall and Brian Smith, the city's Parks and Rec director, to learn how we could make an impact.
As we all know, building a recreational facility would bring many benefits to our community. For example, one of the benefits would be increased property values. According to a report by the University of Washington, homes within a quarter mile of a recreational center are 10% more valuable on average. Building a center would also boost local academic performance. Recreation center programs can be a crucial part of increasing student achievement. Many studies indicate this, including ones done by the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction and the After School Corporation, among others. After-school programs can have positive impacts on classroom behavior, test scores, and reading and math achievement. After-school programs have also been shown to enhance experiential learning.
Community rec centers create a space that fosters community engagement. Having a space where people can go to hang out with friends, play games and sports, build social bonds. These social bonds improve our lives and create strong and safe communities by promoting social interaction, volunteerism, and civic pride. Facilities that offer community sports programs promote social cohesion. I've actually experienced these things firsthand. I'm a martial artist, so I need a place to train, but I don't have the space at home nor access to a gym. So what I do have, though, is access to base. And on base, they have a sports rec center. And if it weren't for that sports rec center and access to it, I wouldn't have been able to strengthen my friendship with someone who I previously saw as just an acquaintance, but now I see him as a good friend. And I actually made a friend there as well. Me and my brothers, we were just going, like our everyday, let's go, let's train. And we saw this guy, he saw us. So we're like, hey, let's train together. And we started talking, and now we're good friends with him as well.
Alrighty. Another benefit of rec centers or community centers are, that's not the right side. Quality of life. Sorry. There it goes. Sorry. So, rec centers provide a place for leisure, physical activity, and as Amy said, social interaction. And they do this through the amenities offered there. So, residents are able to exercise, talk, and ultimately rec centers should be a safe space for people to go and, foster strong community bonds. And that helps develop a culture of good health, well-being, and there's a lot of youth especially who may not have a good place at home, and for them, after school, over weekends, over the summer, it's really important that they have a place to go. And so a community center would support that. And the reason community centers are so good at providing quality of life is because, next slide, is because the community rec center fits the community. Ultimately, the amenities that are offered at rec centers are decided through a feasibility study, which looks at community opinion, location, cost factors, and that's all combined into one big report. And that's what decides what the rec center looks like. And that's why rec centers are so good at what they do. That's why the quality of life is great, because it's based on what the community wants and needs. And that is why quality of life is a great thing that rec centers do.
Youth development. Community centers, rec centers, create a place for youth to release energy in positive ways. Exercise helps youth develop positive self-esteem and enhances their social relationships. Interacting with the people in your community can also help you make improvements in your leadership skills. An active community recreation center can have a stabilizing effect on the lives of young people. It's proven that students have a 69% increase in work completion, and 1 in 2 students improve math and reading scores. Alongside that, 62% of students have improved behavior during class time. Community centers create the perfect setting for local mentorship programs for the youth of the community. Youth-focused programs foster discipline, self-esteem, and leadership.
Community recreational center benefits. First off, positive economic impact. Building a recreational center would invite other people from different communities to come and spend their time and money here, which would ultimately boost our local economy. Visitor spending, which, as I just said, Oak Harbor is known for being a place where you can go walk around, eat. It would really benefit us to bring more people to our town, and as I mentioned, it would also increase local property values.
A community rec center would provide a place for positive activities, more after-school programs, and reduced drug use. Students that participate in after-school activities are 49% less likely to use drugs, 27% less likely to be arrested, have a 21% decrease in recidivism, and a 47% decrease in violent crimes. Since most crimes happen between 2 and 6 p.m., students being involved with an after-school activity have a severely reduced time frame of being able to commit those crimes.
And finally, Senior Falls. The median age in Oak Harbor is 17%, so this means 2 things. We need to prioritize actions that benefit the quality of life for senior citizens, and we have a really high percentage of people going to the ER due to Senior Falls. It's actually, according to Island County Public Health, it is the #1 cause for people visiting the ER, and it's about 1,607 people per year, and if you do the math, that's 5 people per day. Ways we can reduce this is by gait training, the practice of how one walks, lower extremity exercises like flexibility, stability exercises, and strength training. And the National Medicine Library actually says that these exercises can help reduce senior fall rates by around 34%. And I forgot this, senior falls help reduce or lead to an increased risk in muscle weakness, reduced physical fitness, impaired control of balance, chronic or acute illness, physical disability, cognitive impairment, and depression. In 2022, City Council adopted a list of 32 priorities. These priorities ranging from economic development to the possible creation of a water taxi at the marina. And a City Council would help towards accomplishing a couple of these priorities, whether it be economic development, like Brian said, by bringing people into Oak Harbor from all across the island and possibly even off island and driving them to spend money at local businesses, or even public involvement through hosting community events like public workshops or sports tournaments. This would increase the city's morale, which is another one of City Council's priorities, as well as city building and expansion. We'd like to take this time to ask everyone in support of a community rec center in Oak Harbor to please stand. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. So our official ask to the City Council of Oak Harbor is to fund a comprehensive feasibility study into the building of a rec center. I mentioned what a feasibility study is earlier in the slides, and it's a really important report. It looks at demographics, it looks at location, it looks at cost, it looks at everything that you would need to consider to building a rec center, and it takes time. So it's important to get started right away. We talked with the director of the Parks and Rec Board, Brian Smith, and he told us that the cost range would be about $100,000. So it is an expensive endeavor. But I can't stress how important it is to us as the Oak Harbor Club, because we chose this as our service project, unanimously. So we are willing to advocate for it and try to fund it in whatever way we can. And as you saw by the people in this room, our ask is not just our ask alone. It's something that the city wants. And it would be great if we could get the ball rolling here with a feasibility study. So, thank you.
According to the sports facilities companies, with intelligent programming and effective community outreach, a community recreational center can be a central component to enact change at a community level. We will spend our time this year raising awareness about the community value of establishing a community rec center here in Oak Harbor and fundraising for the cause. We hope you'll join us in our support and advocacy for a community rec center here in Oak Harbor. What questions can we answer for you?
Do you guys,
I don't exactly know the answer to that question, but we will do our best to, as a nonprofit organization, to spend our time this year fundraising for this cause.
go ahead, Brian.
More of a comment. First of all, thanks for coming out. This is the third time I've heard you guys, and that's a good thing. It means you're getting out there quite a bit, and you guys are doing a good job of it. On our agenda later on, we do talk about working with the state to get a $200,000 grant for a feasibility study, so work's going on it. What I would encourage the community to do is keep writing in, keep with the public comments. A lot of times we get a lot of excitement over something and then we hear nothing. I've talked to folks in the community, and most of the community wants this. Until today, we've received no public comment asking for it, not to my knowledge. So I would encourage you guys to continue the advocacy, continue getting people involved, continue writing in. The more we hear from the community of what they want through the proper channels, the more we prioritize it. So thank you guys for all you do, and let's try to get this done.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer.
Yeah, just real quick, thank you to the six of you for coming in. River, thank you as well. To see your guys' principal behind you, that's pretty cool as well. I think, 2009, I had the opportunity to tour the Ray and Joan Kroc Salvation Army facility in Salem, Oregon, and it was incredibly inspirational. Seeing the revamp that was able to lead to for that whole part of town, and I think ultimately is what led to my involvement in Parks and Recreation, and ultimately a career in Parks and Recreation. And this is certainly something that Oak Harbor wants, something that Oak Harbor needs, we have to figure out how to pay for it. And with enough citizens helping to push, that answer becomes much easier. So thank you very much, and look forward to hearing a lot more.
Councilmember Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I can't emphasize more, back up to both what the other council members said. The audience, the folks coming here, you empower us, right? I mean, you do have input, and we do listen. And when we see people show up at a meeting, I mean, when we walk into this building to an empty room, I can certainly tell you it's not as exciting as to walking into this building with a full crowd, no matter what it be for, good or bad. Obviously, this is a great discussion we're having tonight, and it takes people to initiate it. And hats off to you. I can certainly tell you after a few years on the council, this has not been something that hasn't been discussed amongst council. We've discussed this several times. We've discussed this at meetings. We've discussed this in workshops. We've certainly discussed this amongst ourselves. We've discussed this with the school district, who I think is going to be an integral partner in letting us move forward, right? Which obviously, you guys obviously have some influence on too, right? So keep it up. Comments like Councilmember Stuckey said in person have a lot bigger impact. We know everybody's got busy days, but let's face it, it doesn't take 2 seconds to shoot something off a quick email, right? It takes some time and it takes some effort to come here, on a Tuesday night and tell us in person, and we understand that, and so those type of comments obviously are weighted a lot heavier than something, that somebody took 2 seconds to jot down and write and hit a send button. So we appreciate the time, we appreciate the effort. It's going to be an uphill battle, right? This is something, like I said, that's been talked about for years. This is not going to happen overnight. This is going to be some work, and looks like we may have part of the right group to help us get going with that. And like Councilmember Stuckey says, you're going to hear later tonight that we are going to be putting in a request to try and figure out a way to fund a feasibility study. And now then the next step is we got to do something with that feasibility study, right? And so you might want to be starting to think about that next. All right. But thank you for the time, and thank you for everybody in the audience for making an appearance tonight. It's really appreciated.
Anyone else on the dais want to say? Yes, Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you guys for coming and making a presentation. I'm excited, obviously, about this project. So what are your next steps? I mean, you've made a presentation to Rotary, you made a presentation to the Parks and Rec Commission, you made a presentation to us. Who else are you making presentations to? What else? What are you doing in terms of fundraising? And how can all these people who have said they want to support, how can they support you in helping to bring this forward, aside from the public comment portion of it?
Yeah. We don't have any more presentations planned as of now, but we have talked a lot about what we're going to do after this. We're thinking, obviously, advocacy. We're going to be doing a lot of door-to-door, emailing people, just getting the word out to what's happening. We are talking about fundraising. We plan for a mod pizza day maybe as the Mr. Oak Harbor Club, and see if we can get some, that thing. You probably know what it is, but yeah.
Councilmember Stuckey's a huge fan, yeah.
Oh. Yeah, we'd probably do something there, and obviously we're not going to raise $100,000 overnight or even, come close to it, but we just want to stress that whatever little bit we raise, it's going to go to this project, and we do hope to get the word out, and get the people in the room thinking about it. Yeah.
I encourage you to continue to think big. I mean, this is a big undertaking, as Councilmember Wiesner said, and it can be done. I mean, but it's going to take work, it's going to take effort, and I encourage you to think big and to ask big and make presentations to as many other nonprofits as you possibly can. And when you're ready to make that ask, then start making that ask, and let's see what we can get together to make this happen. That's right.
Last chance. Anyone else? All right. So quickly, I just want to quickly say, public comment will be just 1 second. Give me 1 second. So, I have been with you guys since competition night. I'm immensely proud of every one of you. I think you're doing an amazing job. Keep it up. There are a lot of people up here that are advocating for you, and we're not going to give up as well. So just keep doing the work you're doing. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So with that, we'll move into citizen comment period. Citizens may comment on consent agenda items or subjects of interest not listed on the agenda at this time. Citizens will have the opportunity to comment on the remaining agenda items during the meeting as appropriate. Citizens can also visit our website prior to our meetings for methods to submit public comment or contact the city clerk, Julie Nestor, by phone or email. When submitting comments, please include your name and address. Public comments sent anonymously will be shared with the mayor and council but will not be displayed. To date, we have received 2 public comments since our last regular meeting, both regarding support for our recreation center. We will display these on the screen now. All right, thank you. And then now I will turn to the city clerk to see if we've had anyone sign up to make public comment at this time on this matter.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Nate Salisbury has signed up to speak.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Nate Salisbury. I'm the proud principal tonight of Oak Harbor High School, and I just have a couple things I want to share. Councilman Stuckey, I want to be the third person to grant your request that I'm here to support these kids. They got me here tonight. That's the reason I'm here. But while I'm here, I also want to take advantage of an opportunity I have. We believe in student voice at Oak Harbor High School, and we got to all hear that tonight. Man, didn't they do just an excellent job of expressing themselves and coming up with an idea and trying to do something about it. But I want to take this opportunity. I've only lived here for 4.5 years, and I've grown to just love this place. And I have a feeling that many of you may have, how many of you, I wonder, attended Oak Harbor High School? Look at that. And even out here, and so I wanted to just take this opportunity, since I'm here, to thank you for being such a great representative, like they were tonight. They represented Oak Harbor High School, and they did a great job of it. And I want to thank you for the sacrificial time that you give up to serve our community and all that you do for all of us. Thank you so much. On behalf of Oak Harbor High School, we're proud to be associated with all of you, even the ones that didn't go there. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Thank you very much. So at this time, I would open it up for anyone else that would like to make public comments.
Hi there. My name is Tiffany Scribner. I'm a resident of 45 Northeast Noonan Loop here in Oak Harbor, and I'm also the executive director of Big Brothers Big Sisters Violin County. One thing that the fabulous Mr. Oak Harbor royalty did not mention is that they have the full support of Big Brothers Big Sisters Violin County. One thing that I have seen in my nearly 5 years as the executive director there is that our kids don't know what to do after school. Lots of them are going home and are latchkey kids, as I suspect some of us in this room were. And when you have the whole world at your fingertips in the form of the internet and your phone, and you have no one supervising you, there is unlimited trouble that is available to you. However, I have seen through the mentorship of Big Brothers Big Sisters and the programs that we put together that our community wants to be involved and kids want to go do things. We created the Dino program many of you have heard me talk about, which is a program that happens in the community. And our biggest problem most of the time with that program is we don't know where to house it. We don't know where to go to put all the kids that want to be there in the same room. We have been very lucky to be partners with the schools and with the college here locally. We've been very lucky to partner with the center and with lots of other people. But what I know is that the kids in our community need a safe space to go. And I know that you will have a nonprofit partner that is chomping at the bit to help fundraise, to help raise awareness. We sent an email today to 700 people to make sure that there were some folks here tonight and some public comments happening. We are behind this, and the board of directors at Big Brothers Big Sisters is behind this. You have a community that wants this, and we are rip-raring to go. You just got to point us in a direction. And we know we have to point you in a direction too, but I think this is something that we have to hold hands while we figure out what the path looks like. So I hope that that can happen. Thank you to all of you for the work and for being willing to do this and to making sure that that funding can come through. I know that that's not a small job, and it comes with a lot of gratitude from your community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else at this time that would like to make a comment? Yes.
You guys are awesome. The courage that took. I did speech in high school, not in Oak Harbor, but I did speech in high school, and I was shivering and shaking, and I wasn't talking to a bunch of esteemed ladies and gentlemen. Susan and I, my lovely wife, we've been working.
Can you give us your name and address, sir? I'm sorry.
I can do that.
Okay.
925 Ocean Bluff Lane, that isn't my name, that's the address. Tom Choquette and my wife Susan Cook. We came on island about almost 7 years ago. What a gorgeous place you have. We immediately volunteered at Ryan's house, and we've been working there for over 6 years, almost 7 years. And we're going to be closing down the Oak Harbor Drop-In Center for lack of funding. This month will probably be the last month it's open. But I want to tell you a little bit. 86% of our kids are from Oak Harbor, from North Island pretty much. We get some from South Island. And if we weren't there for them, for community more than anything else, they would be a statistic on a wall somewhere in Oak Harbor. If you look towards the future at all, you need to look toward our youth. They're having a really, really hard time. And they have very little examples by our leadership, national and local. Not local here, but you guys can give them a lifeline that they need by give them a liaison officer on city council. Give them one of you that will work with them and work with the nonprofit community. This is critical if you care about 5, 10, 15 years into the future of Oak Harbor. Our kids have nothing to do. I've worked with hundreds of kids from our community, most of them that really are dragging themselves up from the bottom. I want to thank you for your time. Whoa, to be public servants and to give that time to the community is awesome. But let's help these kids that are right on the line, and there's a lot more than you think, grow up so they can help their community too. A liaison. I think one of the things when you said, what do you hope to accomplish? I think it'd be wonderful tonight if you accomplished a liaison on city council for these young people. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I see we have someone else.
Hello, I'm Jenny Saltonstall. I live out on Darst Road. I've got 3 kids in Oak Harbor schools, and I'm in favor of the rec center because of all the things that were talked about tonight, but then also for people my age who would like to get together with other people my age and do activities out of the weather. You know, it would be great to go exercise or have a place where we could meet that's out of the weather, where our kids could be present in the same building. So I'm in favor of the rec center.
Thank you so much. Anyone else that wants to make a public comment? All right.
Hi, I'm Jay Cochran, and this is Britt Craner, and we're with NWPPRD, North Whidbey Pool Park and Recreation District. We would just like to say thank you to the Mr. Oak Harbor for getting the ball rolling. I've been here not very long, 4 years, but in the time that we have seen our programs at North Whidbey grow, and every time we start a new program, we just hear huge positive feedback about doing more and more in the community. So we know, and we'd like to offer to work with whoever to bring this to fruition and workshop and whatever it takes to help, because we have a broader reach than just the city of Oak Harbor. So I think that would be many hands make light work. So whatever we can do to help. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And just to add an additional comment, you guys have done an amazing job, and I do want to say thank you to Councilmember Eric Marshall for providing leadership for this group. You've done a lot in the community as far as recreation and sports are concerned. Recreation is a big deal to a lot of us in this room. Keep going. You guys are doing an incredible job. One thing I would advise is consider programming as you're going along this path, because that is something you're going to be asked about a lot. What exactly are you going to do with the facility once you have this? So when you're planning something like this, facility is important, but what you put into it is important. So make sure you're attacking it at both angles, and you're going to get a lot of community support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, last call. Anyone else? All right, hearing no one else who wishes to speak at this time, we'll close public comment on this issue and we'll move forward to our consent agenda. We will now move to the consent agenda. Staff has presented the listed consent agenda items, all of which were included in the meeting packet. Are there any objections or changes to the consent agenda? All right, hearing none, the consent agenda is approved as presented. And everyone bear with me, because it's time for mayor's comments, and I apparently have a lot of them. So I'll go as quickly as I can. This is a reminder that the Washington State Ferries are hosting 2 upcoming virtual community meetings designed to provide updates about the ferry system. The meetings will be held Wednesday, January 17th at 12:30 p.m. and Thursday, January 18th at 6 p.m. Advance registration is required to attend. See the links provided. Island Transit has unveiled a new logo. Thank you to Councilmember Marshall today for attending their rebranding event. And that's up for you to see. Yeah, it's a great logo. We are sharing information with tips and resources on the city's social media channels and website regarding winter weather. So just be on the lookout for those as those are happening. It's changing pretty quickly around here. So hopefully we have most of the cold stuff behind us, but I don't know. I heard there's something about another cold spell coming through. So response to recent incident at Northeast Barron. The city greatly appreciates the response of the police department and appreciates the Boys and Girls Club and the Roller Barn for assisting the public and first responders during that event. So thank you very much to everyone involved and for those who participated. Now hiring, the city has openings for employment in several areas. See our website for a complete listing and how to apply. 25 days of giving. City staff collected over 600 non-perishable food items during December and delivered it to the food bank. So great job to the city staff, and thank you for everyone who contributed. Mayor's first 100 days in office report. Meeting with city departments, greeting legislators, and looking forward to an upcoming tour with Island County Commissioner Jill Johnson and the Association of Washington City Action Days in Olympia. And I will tell you that, something that's not listed here, but I've spent a lot of time on the phone already with state representatives and making sure that we're moving forward with what our priorities are, our council's priorities are, and you, Mr. Oak Harbor Royalty, are part of that. So just so you know that. Upcoming city council retreat. The council will hold a special meeting for a council retreat on February 12th from 8:15 to 4 p.m. at the Whidbey Island campus of Skagit Valley College. City leadership staff and I will also be in attendance. Marina dredging open house. We held a very well-attended open house here at City Hall on January 11th from 5 to 7 p.m. to provide information on dredging at the marina. If you'd like more details or to see the presentation, please visit oakharbor.gov/marina dredging. Marina storm damage update. I'd like to call on Parks and Recreation Director Brian Smith to provide us with an update on damage to the marina from the recent storm. So at this time, I'll be calling on Mr. Brian Smith.
Good evening, Council. So during the last storm event, we did have some damage to the E and F docks over at the marina. At the F dock, we had a panel that came loose, is hanging by a thread. We did go ahead and let that go down to the bottom. It'll sit there for a couple of years until we do the dredge project, and then we'll replace that as part of that project. At E dock, we did have a coupler that broke off and sunk. You can see in the first picture how that usually is. Second picture is without that coupler. Staff were able to secure the docks together. We'll be able to do the repair ourselves for that one. It'll take a couple of months to get it done, but just kind of shows the vulnerability that we have, especially with that breakwater F dock and the configuration of it that we'll have to address as part of the improvements to the marina. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Councilmember Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Brian. You know, we're getting ready to head back to DC again in March, and you know, part of that discussion, at least on my end, and I know staff is interested in it, is discussing with Army Corps, you know, the construction of a true breakwater. So if between now and then, if maybe you could put together for us some sort of a presentation showing the damage that we've had to FDOC over the last 5 winters. I think that's going to be an important sales tool for us. I think they need to understand, you know, what it is we're up against. If I'm not mistaken, you know, I don't know how much it's going to cost to repair FDOC this time, but I think we've sunk, you know, close to $5 million. A lot of that insurance money, but still close to $5 million into repairing what I know to be the only marina that uses their docks as a breakwater that I can think of. You know, and it just amazes me every time I go into another harbor and I see these beautiful, you know, breakwaters out there, and I'm thinking, gee, we're protecting ours with a dock. And on top of that, we have shown that there was initially a breakwater there that was naturally formed over hundreds and hundreds of years. It was removed by the U.S. government in the 1940s, exposing our harbor to, you know, these type of damages and winds. So, yeah, if you could, you know, think about that. I'm just trying to give you an advance heads up because we got a couple of months, but that's something we lacked last trip. Some physical pictures to show them back there what we're talking about, and hopefully, you know, we can continue to make the efforts back there. I think our Public Works Director said for the first time that he can remember we actually received a phone call from the Army Corps wondering, you know, what they could do, and we want to continue trying to do what we can as council members to push that back from DC back this direction and try to work together. Myself, you know, I'm thinking the dredging time is a perfect time to be building a breakwater. The equipment is very similar to the construction of a breakwater. You typically use a bottom dump, which is what's proposed in our particular dredging project. So, you know, it would be fantastic if we could get this thing timed right and do our dredging and create that breakwater at the same time. And anything you can do to give us for ammo when we're back there will help.
Yeah, any kind of in-water work is very expensive and requires a lot of permitting. That's why we're letting this repair sit until we do the dredging project. We've done a lot of investigation since you did the DC trip, legislative trip, and have found compelling documentation for federal assistance from the Seattle office of Army Corps of Engineers. And Crossroads Strategies that we've contracted with is going to bat for us to try and get some additional federal support. And we have a lot of good state support from meeting with legislatures over the last several weeks. So going in the right direction.
Hopefully, beside the Army Corps of Engineers, hopefully we can get some support from our state senators and congressmen back there. And, you know, the reality is the only thing keeping our harbor from being a transportation hub of some sort is the lack of depth of water and the lack of a breakwater. I think if we had a breakwater and we had the proper depth, we could be having mosquito fleet or similar type boats coming here. Port Townsend does a fantastic job. They actually attract one of the American cruise liners that brings about 1,000 passengers to their city a couple times a summer. And I just think we're missing all of that potential, and there is money back there for transportation dollars, and I think that's something we need to continue to look at. Obviously, our mini harbor, is unusable as a tie-up dock. If you tie your boat up to that, you got a pretty good chance of coming back, finding it sitting on a sandbar. So it'd be nice to have that facility back up and accessible for some sort of a transportation project.
All right, thanks, Councilmember Wiesner. Just to add to that as well, we are planning on meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers, and we have had discussions with our lobbyists about having meetings with Maria Cantwell while we're back in DC. So that is all on the agenda, just so you know. So any other comments up here? Thanks, Brian. All right, so with that, we're moving into council comments. Now I will call upon the council for any comments that they might have. Councilmember Wittgenstein.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the high school robotics team for the invitation to come out for their open house, and I got to watch those young students get their stuff together, and it's pretty cool. I'm really excited to see where they go and what they do, and what a great turnout. I think there was like 700 kids there or something. It was really, really large. No, it wasn't that many, but more like 40. But it was really great, and I just wanted to say that that's an opportunity as a council. If we get those, we should take an opportunity to go say hi.
Thank you, Councilmember Wittgenstein. Anyone else up here? Yes, Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to commend Chief Slowick and the Oak Harbor Police Department. I'm always impressed by anytime there's a police department of recognition or anything of that nature, how they come and support one another. And so it was really nice to see as many officers as there were here tonight to support that the swearing in of that sergeant. And so obviously there's good morale there, and it's really a pleasure to see. And so hats off to you and to the department. And so I just wanted to recognize that and appreciate that. And I believe it's happy birthday, Mayor.
Thanks for sneaking that in there, Councilmember Stuckey.
Yeah, last week I went to the Island County Board of Commissioners meeting. As we know, they're working on their comp plan, and I think it's CAC's going to give a presentation on it later today. Is there any reason, as I understand it, as council, we really don't talk a whole lot to the commissioners? Every once in a while, maybe I'll talk to Jill Johnson as I see her around, and I know staff does, and Mayor, maybe you're on, I think there's council of governments or something like that. Is there any reason why once a year we can't meet as a council and board of commissioners? I mean, especially when we're going over something major as a comp plan, it'd be nice to have some dialogue that's direct from us and not filtered through staff. Not that they don't do a wonderful job, but is there any reason why something like that can't be done?
I heard the request. Is that a request?
At least for me, it's a request, if possible. I just think that, sitting in that meeting, I learned a lot, and it did occur to me we just don't communicate much between council and commissioners. So it would nice to be once or twice a year, bring some hot button issues and look them in the eye and discuss these sort of things. It'd be kind of nice. Thank you.
So just to clarify, are you wanting to meet as a group, or would you like to meet with them one-on-one?
I can meet with them one-on-one. I mean, any of us can contact them and meet with them one-on-one, but I don't see why, much like we had with the Planning Commission and us here in the same room. Yeah, it would be nice to meet, just as long as there were things to discuss. We don't just need to hang out. But yeah, I think it'd be great as all of us.
Okay. That's fair. Councilmember Eisen.
Thank you. Councilor Stuckey makes a great point. I'm in year 13 of council now, and we have all gotten together with the county commissioners twice in that time. That's happened 2 times in almost 13 years. So, and I think every retreat, one of us brings it up and says, hey, it would be great if we could do this. And then it just kind of nothing happens. So I don't know what needs to happen to, we don't, obviously we're not pushing for it or reminding people, but yeah, I'm not really sure where the hang up is on whose end that happens. But I do think that even though we're all very busy, that once a year is not an unreasonable request. So, I second Councilor Stuckey's suggestion of getting together, having a joint workshop with all three commissioners, once a year if possible. I think that's a great idea.
Thank you, Councilmember Heisen. Anyone else up here have anything they would like to contribute or add? All right, with that, we will move on to contracts and agreements, and we have the purchase authorization for a water distribution system for Windjammer Park, Splash Park, excuse me. And with that, our Parks and Rec Director, Brian Smith, will be back up.
He just comes out of nowhere. Hello again, Council. So you have before you purchase authorization for Vortex Water Distribution System. This includes a controller and improvements to the Splash Park. It was last spring we last talked about improvements to the Splash Park, and it's taken us quite a while to find a vendor who would even come out to look at the system and work with us to engineer a modification and improvements to it. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. Thanks. Thank you. That's very helpful. So the Splash Park is a great amenity for our community. I went out shortly after we opened it last summer in June and went with my little counter. We had over 300 people in and around the Splash Park and another just under 150 throughout the rest of the park on a weekend. Very heavily used amenity. Appreciated and used by the community. When the controller was purchased about 5 years ago, it was already obsolete technology. We don't have any regional support. The company that created the controller doesn't exist anymore, so we had no tech support for it. We had no way to modify the system. The city was using obscene amounts of water when we first opened the park as a flow-through system. It's not recirculatory, and so being able to control water efficiency is incredibly important. Along with the controller, we also had actuators that were easily damaged by sand and kids stomping on just normal wear and tear. So this purchase order installs a new Mastro Pro controller, allows us to zone out each of the features instead of having them all activated with one button, and also includes 2 additional zoning areas, including the river. This allows kids and families to go and activate each of the individual features for on-demand use to save us water and be more efficient and be more conservative with our water use. The features will also, improvements will also put in pedestals in 7 different areas and have new activator buttons that are resistant to the salty environment as well as sand that accumulates there, being next to a sandy beach. We'll also include rain sensor for turning on and off the Splash Park. We can program that and eventually tie it in with our local network to be able to remotely change the configuration of that park if we need to during colder times during the season. The price for the improvements is $54,499, and we'll take that out of the Windjammer Park improvement funds. Vortex has already come out with us. We looked at the engineering for it. Staff will do some trenching work and a few other modification improvements to save us some money on that installation, and hopefully we'll get that all up and running before the park opens, usually around Memorial Day weekend or the weekend right before Memorial Day. And I'm happy to answer any questions for you.
All right, before we get into the questions, I'll just confirm that we've not received any public comments on this issue.
That's correct, Mayor. We received no comment on this item.
Okay, so then I would ask, do we have any additional public comments from anyone that's here with us this evening? All right, hearing none, I will call upon council for their questions and comments, and I will go to Councilmember Wiesner first.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Brian, and thanks for putting up with me all last year complaining about the bubbly river not being so bubbly and addressing that. And I like the idea of the pedestals, right? Because, we almost had to have instructions down there to find those little buttons on the ground. And then, of course, when, one of the buttons quit working, everybody was really confused because I'm pushing the button and nothing's happening. So I'm glad to see that we're addressing basically all the concerns, including the water usage concern with the rain sensors and et cetera. And I don't expect you to have it available tonight, but if you wouldn't mind getting out to council, I would like to see our usage for last summer, now that we've got the separate meter on the water park. If you could get us those calculations and kind of break it down with gallon usage and those costs, as well as the treatment cost for that, because we know that's a separate fee, so that we can kind of get an idea. Hopefully we're going to obviously see lower numbers than we did the first year when we did not have those separate meters, but it'd be nice to have that info. But yeah, this is something that's important. Like you said, that was in June that 300 people around the splash park. There was days in July and August, I would certainly venture to say there was 1,000 people or more through that splash park during a day. It's certainly an important feature for the community, and especially with what we were just talking about with something for the kids to do. It's very important. So certainly something I'm in support, and I appreciate all your time and effort. And to get into this point, I know it wasn't easy, and it's another mess you've come in and straightened out for us, and I really do appreciate that. Thank you.
We'll do an end of season report that shows the comparables with the new system.
Thank you, Councilmember Wiesner. Councilmember Stuckey.
Yeah, I used that park bit with my kid and saw people there, and I'm going to be extremely diplomatic here and say the current setup is not great. That's the diplomatic version. I would question why it was an outdated system to begin with when it was only open in 19, but I'm not going to be too overly critical because I wasn't sitting in this seat here and I don't have all that backstory. My question is, we're paying $55 now. How often are we going to have to be replacing switches, or, are we going to be looking at another system in 5 years?
No, so this brings us up to modern technology standards. I would imagine the controller will probably last us through the life of this system.
But the activators, those will need to be replaced from time to time if they're...
Yeah, I'll have to look at the warranty information on them, but you could probably expect a 5 to 10 year, depending on wear and tear.
And ballpark of what those may cost? Is it minimal? It may have been in the packet and I missed it.
Yeah, I could probably get off the line item for you here. About $2,200 each.
And there's 2 or 3 of them? 7? Oh, shows how far off I am. Okay, well, here's hoping for 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Stuckey. Councilmember Wittgenstein.
Thank you, Brian, for presenting all this. Kind of a two-part question. You mentioned early on that the water doesn't recycle, right? It's not circulatory. Is that even something that we can fix if we're going to be... I don't know if it's part of something we could do with this system, but is that something we can do down the road that would save us on water costs in the future? Especially if we're going to get 10 years out of a system.
Yeah,
the more we can reduce those costs, I would think the better.
It's not really a modification we could make to the current system. We'd have to put in a new splash park system.
Gotcha. So it was built wrong. Okay, gotcha.
Well, it was built right for what it was intended to do.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wittgenstein. Councilmember Hoffmeyer.
Yeah, as somebody that spends every day being an aquatic facility person, Vortex and Splashtacular, those are 2 companies out there that do great work. So good job on getting a good vendor there. Looking through this quote, looks really good. As far as having a recirc system, a lot of recirc systems, maybe 5,000 gallons. You don't want 1,000 people and 5,000 gallons of water a day. It doesn't work. So I think the direct to waste is a good thing. I think there. With that said, I think looking ahead, even if there were cost of replacing stuff, I think there's a good bang for the buck down there. The only other thing I would add, back in it would have been December of 2018. had to apply for a permit with the Washington State Department of Health to make some modifications on the pool. That permit was entered as an emergency request on that permit, and it took the Washington Department of Health down in Olympia until mid-May to pull that off. So that would be my one advice to this vendor. I don't know how often they work in the state of Washington, but I would recommend that they probably submit that permit as an emergency. And other than that, feel free to call if you need anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hoffmeyer. Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Brian, for the time that you put into this and finding a good vendor. I too am a little frustrated that we bought an outdated controller initially, but I know that you weren't here for that portion of it. So my questions to you are, one, how does a rain sensor work in a splash park? I mean, how does it tell the difference between rain and being splashed upon? And then is this something that we're going to have installed by next summer?
Yes. So with approval from council, we hope to have this installed before Memorial Day weekend. As far as the sensor, I mean, I can send you the technology on it. It's not that different from, you know, your windshield wiper activators or something like that. It's not there in the park being splashed on, but I don't know all the engineering behind it, but I can send it to you.
Thank you, Councilmember Marshall. Anyone else? All right. Councilmember Stuckey.
I make the motion authorizing staff to purchase one water distribution system for $55,000 utilizing NPP GOV contract PS21115 from Vortex Aquatic Structures International.
We have a motion that was read and presented as was presented to us, and it was seconded by Councilmember Wiesner. All in favor, raise your right hand. Passes unanimously.
Thank you. And I just want to also thank Sandra Place, our Central Services Manager, for putting this all together. Thank you.
Brian, thank you. All right, moving on to the next item, change of hearing examiner and approval of corresponding professional services agreement. With that, Mr. David Kuhl is here to present on this item tonight. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Tonight we would like to hire a new hearing examiner. There we go. So the history on the hearing examiner here in Oak Harbor, we used to use a fellow back in 2020. We moved on to the Sound Law Center in 2020. Sound Law Center did a nice job for us for quite a few years. A fellow named Andrew Reeves did the hearings for us. During the period of time of last summer, we came across a situation where we were notified that Sound Law Center was no longer going to be doing hearing examiner cases. So Mr. Reeves stepped forward as Tree Bucket Legal Consulting, and we brought him on as our hearing examiner. That was back in July of 2023. He did a half a dozen different hearings for us last year, and since that time, we have decided to move on and find a new firm. So what we did last year was we had MRSC as a scope of work and went out to find 4 different firms who do hearing examiner services. Albrechts and Associates was one of those firms. We did not select them last summer, but they have stepped forward again and have offered their services. Phil Albrecht is an attorney who I have used before when I was a planning director in city of Woodinville, and he did a nice job for us when I was there. He also presents to the Washington State Planning Directors Association at our annual conference with legal review on how to deal with various legal issues. So he's a good land use attorney as well, and we recommend him for this role. Now, this is a one-year contract, and our contracts work that after a year, we can renew the contract for multiple years at that point. So this is a recommended motion we have, and we are available for any questions you might have.
Thank you. I will now turn it over to Julie, our city clerk, to make sure that we haven't received any public comment on this issue.
That's correct, Mayor. We received no comments.
Okay, thank you. And I will open it up to those in attendance here tonight. Is there anyone that's present that would like to make a make a comment on this issue? All right, with none being heard, I will then call upon council for their questions and comments. And I will defer to Councilmember Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Cool, first off, I know we've got a $20,000 annual budget, and that's based upon the number of hearing exams and stuff. But the cost per hour, is this similar to the previous contract?
I think it'll turn out to be about the same. Mr. Albrecht's is $210 an hour. His cases, typically, he runs 4 or 5 hours to do his review. Mr. Reeves, his cases were billed at a set rate of $3,800 for certain types of cases, subdivisions, and conditional use permits. So I think this will turn out to be a little less expensive.
Well, certainly, unless we have something very complicated, it sounds like it would. Okay, and then it appears as though we have 3 different ways to approach the determination of this contract. Is this a mutually agreed upon termination? Is Mr. Reeves on board with the mutual termination, or?
I talked to Mr. Reeves on the 11th and asked him to respond to an email that I sent to him asking him to resign. He asked me what I wanted him to do, and I said, please just respond to the email by the 16th, which is today. We have not seen a response from Mr. Reeves yet. Typically in our contract, we have 10 days for him to mutually agree with us if he would like to not perform services anymore.
And if there's not a mutual agreement, then it looks like, since it's not an inability on his part to perform duties, their other choice would be to remove him from office for cause.
That's correct.
And I mean, before we enter into a new contract with a new person, shouldn't we, I want to make sure we're not putting the cart before the horse here. Shouldn't we have Mr. Oburn?
I think there needs to be some trust here, that the council, that the staff feel this is in the best interest to move on, and so I would ask that the council do so. And if you want to have some further discussion after the meeting to give you some more detail, you can, but that's what I would ask and request of you, to put some trust in us and follow our recommendation to switch to another hearing examiner. And based upon our communication, I think we're relatively comfortable with going with option 2, feeling that it's a mutual consent.
Okay, and because I guess I just want to make sure I'm clear on this, right? Because obviously if the council were, because the motion is just to approve the professional service agreement. There's no motion here about, terminating the contract with the other party, and I'm assuming that's something you guys, and I have the faith that you guys are going to do that, right? But if the council's not making that motion, and if it does not get mutually agreed to, doesn't it take a motion in front of council and a vote in front of council to terminate that contract for cause?
I think we're relatively comfortable that we've had a verbal conversation, and then we'll get the written, and then it's going to be a mutual separation.
Okay, all right.
So we are, just as a point of clarification too, we are going into executive session. Can't we have further discussion around this during that time too?
I believe we can.
Okay, so. Anything else, Councilmember Wiesner?
No, thank you. I just wanted to make sure we're clear, because again, the motion is just enacting the new contract. We're not actually taking any action on the previous contract at this point. All right, thank you.
Any other comments at this time? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion. Yes, Councilmember Wiesner.
I move to approve the professional service agreement with Albrecht and Associates PLC for hearing examiner services.
Second.
I have a motion as was presented and seconded by Councilmember Hoffmeyer. All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, it passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Poole. Next, we have the Teamsters Collective Bargaining Agreement for the Oak Harbor Marina Parks and Public Works. And presenting on this issue tonight will be our Human Resources Director, Miss Emma House.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Scared to touch the microphone. Okay. Yes, Emma House, Human Resources Director, here tonight to present to you the collective bargaining agreement for Marina, Parks, and Public Works. And I do have a presentation for you, a short, quick one. And there's the details in your agenda packet. Some extensive details that you'll find on the agenda bill with the track changes and the clean version of the union contracts attached behind. But this is to present the proposed labor agreement by and between the City of Oak Harbor, Marina, Parks, Public Works Departments, and Teamsters Union Local Number 231. Thank you. So in summary, on December 20th, 2023, your city leadership team, the mayor's administration negotiation team, finished negotiations with the Teamsters Union Local 231, and we tentatively agreed to a 2-year collective bargaining agreement. This agreement covers the years of 24 and 2025. I see there is a typo there, but it is through the year of 2024 to the end of December 31st of 2025. January 10th, the members, the bargaining unit members of this agreement, they voted and they approved to ratify this contract. Some of the main negotiated items were that we combined 2 contracts. So we did have 1 contract for Public Works and 1 contract for Marina, and we were able to take both of those contracts and combine them into 1, and also adding the Parks, which is part of your Parks and Recreation Department. Parks was before part of the Public Works group. We just broke it out to make sure that it was more clear. The cost of living adjustments that were negotiated was a 3% for 2024 and 2.5% for 2025, and a market adjustment of 2% for 2024, and these are across the board adjustments for all positions. We adjusted the health insurance premium cost share from an 80% 20% cost share to a 90% 10% cost share. We also had a lot of discussions about standby duty. Standby duty is extremely important for 24/7 operations of your city services. We discussed that premium pay. We changed it from a $32 per weekday and a $48 per weekend day to a $3 25 cent per hour. We also added a reimbursement for prescription safety eyewear at $400. And we made sure that the steel-toed boots and approved workwear for Public Works, Parks, and Marina all matched at $300. There was also multiple minor changes and adjustments to a lot of different sections in the contract for clarity, for definitions, and to make sure that operations and members had good understandings and agreements. And then this is the costing summary for these 3 groups. You have your base currently for 2023, the changes that have been proposed and tentatively agreed upon for 2024 and 2025, and you can see that cost difference and the percent difference over on the far column. And we have our finance director here as well in case you do have any questions or would like any clarity on those numbers. And now we are available to answer any questions you might have.
All right, so before I turn it over to council, I'll just confirm with our city clerk that we've received no public comment on this issue.
That's correct, Mayor. We received no comments.
All right, and then is there anyone here with us tonight that would like to make a comment on this issue? Hearing none, I will move forward to council for their comments or questions. Councilmember Stuckey.
So I read through the entire document. Boy, that's some riveting reading. There's one part in there, and I apologize if I don't have the verbiage exactly correct, about hiring from within.
Yes,
Does that, are temporary employees considered within?
they are.
Okay. So I was wondering. Thank you.
Yes, it's been a big discussion. Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you, Councilmember Stuckey. Anyone else that would like to ask a question or make a comment? All right, hearing none, I would entertain, so it's Councilmember Wittgenstein, sorry.
Yes, thank you for the due diligence and hard work that went into making this happen for our employees. So I'd like to make the motion to authorize the mayor to sign the labor agreement by and between the City of Oak Harbor and the Teamsters Union, local number 231 for Marina, Parks, and Public Works.
Second.
We have a motion as presented and seconded by Councilmember Hoffmeyer. All in favor, raise your right hand. All right, it passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Emma.
Thank you.
All right, now we're moving into other items for consideration, and there specifically, we're going to talk about our 2024 legislative session member requested local community projects. And doing that this evening will be our city administrator, Blaine Oborn.
All right, thank you. First of all, I want to thank the teamwork on this approaching, and the mayor mentioned the legislative initiatives, meeting with our legislator and talking about ask here and things that we have available. So, and I appreciate the mayor's leadership and our grants administrator, Wendy Horn, our police chief, Slowick, and then our our Parks and Recreation Director, Brian Smith. They all contributed to this. We can go to the next slide here. So we have the opportunity to do some ask from the legislature directly. And they have the ability to provide some direct funding. So we looked at options for us in reviewing our grants. And we are recommending 3 requests here that got on our short list here of all the grants and some communication with the legislature that we feel like there's a good chance that they could be funded this year. First of all, great presentation on feasibility study request for a sports and recreation complex. So you did a lot of my work for me. Thank you for there. And so continuation, in looking at it, I think they kind of talked about 100,000 when we kind of put it down together with the dollar amount. We thought with all the complexity and all that we have here, we thought a good number would be $200,000 request, and that's what we're requesting of the legislature to fund our feasibility. And we've had some positive communication of possibility to do this, and so some of the areas we hope that feasibility would cover would be location, amenities, size, cost, staffing need, and cost benefit analysis. I know when in the past the city's taken on some large projects without doing the groundwork, and feasibility is a great groundwork, so we know where it is. Then we go into the design phase, so we really have it more honing in, and then we look for funding and we look for actually construction too. So great foundation here, and we appreciate the interest from our legislature in doing that project. So the second one is kind of a new idea that's kind of come out of some communication here and in communication with our legislature is the possibility of getting a grant for 6 patrol cars and a charging station to go for EV vehicles. So $750,000 is that recommended area there. Savings on fuel, maintenance, with the way we do our vehicles, a lot of the time is idling from our chief, and so certainly an electric vehicle would be more beneficial to the environment, and it supports sustainability. And the third one is really something we've talked about a lot too. We've got a $1 million community rural county economic development grant from the county, which we appreciate, but we certainly would like additional funding there for that project and other projects. We already talked about the need for a breakwater here, and dovetailing that in, so the more money we get, the more we can do. So we're looking for funding on the state level and also the federal level, so we're asking for $1 million to help with the marina dredging project that we expect would be constructed in 2025 and 2026. And I know we had a good picture on the mayor's presentation about the open house and workshop that we had with citizens and people asking questions about the dredging project. With that, I'll throw it back to the mayor, and I'll take any questions and discussion.
All right, so quickly before we get into questions and comments, just confirming we've had no public comment on this issue.
That's correct, Mayor. No public comments were received.
Okay, and then I will just ask one last time, do we have any public comments from anyone in the audience tonight? Hearing none, I will turn this over to council for their questions and comments on this issue. Yes, Councilmember Stuckey.
Couple things. One, with the police EV vehicles, I understand how he's already ready. I understand how optically it looks good from a sustainability perspective. Is this a need, or is this might as well ask?
Certainly. Council, Chief Slowick. So the conversation came up as I was just having conversations with our legislatures. There's an opportunity this year, one, that there is two manufacturers that actually make purpose-built police vehicles that are fully electric. So Chevy makes a Blazer that's new to the market, and then Ford makes a Ford F-150 Lightning. Additionally, our legislatures felt like with the Cap and Invest program that the state has been a part of or been selling, that there's a lot of money that's coming back and they need to invest that in certain ways. There has not been a study by a law enforcement agency on specific police vehicles, purpose-built police vehicles. And so this would be helping them gather some information on the governor's directive to go fully electric or hybrid with first responder vehicles.
So to be clear, is this a need or just a right time for an ask?
I think this is a right time for an ask.
And 750,000, do we think that'll cut it? The only reason why I ask is if it's a good time to ask. What I don't want is, hey, we get that, gosh, we're $150,000 short.
Not at all. This is looking at, first, I worked with these numbers with Sander Place, several vendors. This is looking at the cost of the vehicles currently, what our outfitting costs are with our current outfit vendor, adding a percentage to that to make sure that we're well within our numbers, and then a cost for a DC fast charger, which is the quickest way to power or charge the EVs. Additionally, there's opportunities that through grants and stuff like that as well, so that potentially could be refunded or paid for by the grant, the fast chargers could.
I think you'd want a fast charger if you have police vehicles. I don't,
Yeah, just like Blaine had said, that the highest item for us in fuel consumption is the idle time. And so our vehicles idle a lot of our times. They're out on the streets or on crime scenes. They're idling because they need to power up all our vehicles. This reduces any of that consumption of fuel. The vehicles that are purposely built have the ability to idle for 50 hours and power all the equipment. And then they all have mileage of 240 plus.
Okay. And my other question is not police department related. My last pet project was Whidbey. I think I've got myself a new one. And that would be some traffic mitigation or roundabout at the Swantown in 20, which I think we can all agree is probably one of the worst bottlenecks we have. Now, I understand that Highway 20 is ran by DOT, and we just can't have our staff go and do it, although it sounds like there may be some talks of that. Is there any reason why, with all of the development that we're looking forward to, that there's no ask in here when it comes to traffic?
We did do some communication that I think you're aware of on SR 20, and there was, it's already a DOT project, and there was a request or some indication that it might go faster if we bring it in-house and have some ability. So we did write a letter of support that we, verifying that we can bring it in-house, but that's a separate issue, kind of a separate funding source, so it doesn't really dovetail here. So that's $30 million is the DOT one, and so we certainly are working on that as another priority.
So it's a separate issue, okay.
Yes.
And if there's any way, if that letter was already sent, if we can, as a council, see that letter?
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Stuckey and Councilmember Hoffmeyer.
I think it was the first Tuesday in August, National Night Out. I was trying to get Chief Tavier to let me drive that Tesla. So, hey, as long as we get to drive it, sounds like a good plan. That Tesla in Langley is pretty cool. I think, moving on to the rest of it, I think a lot of people out there thought that 32 priorities might be a few too many. But I think as a council, we knew what staff could do. And to see staff continuing to move the ball ahead on, so many of those items, first down after first down. And I think we've got several of these things down on the goal line. Keep up the good work. I think our job as council often is just to, assist, to pass the ball to staff or even to the mayor, and to see so much of the progress of the last couple of years continuing and picking up pace. It's great to see, and couldn't support this more. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hoffmeyer. Anyone else that has anything for the good of the order?
I move to approve the submission of the 2024 local community projects to the legislature for consideration.
Second.
We have a motion as presented and seconded by Councilmember Marshall. All those in favor say, or raise your right hand, sorry. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much to City Administrator Blaine O'Born and everyone else. All right, with that, we're moving on to reports and discussion items. We have county-wide planning policies update from our principal planner, Kamek, to present.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Senior Planner, Principal Planner Kat Kamek here to present the countywide planning policies. Just before I start my presentation, I want to state that Councilmember Stuckey's idea of meeting with the commissioners is a great idea. I think we can work on that, especially when all the jurisdictions in Island County, including the county itself, is updating their comprehensive plan. This is a requirement of the state legislature. So it would be a great year to have even 1 or 2 meetings to discuss this, because there's a lot of shared interests. There's population distribution, housing distribution, and eventually potential UGA expansion that could benefit from a joint discussion so that we can all be on the same page. So having said that, I will jump into this presentation, the countywide planning policies. I want to state before I start that this is a document that is in progress. It's still being worked on. It's not finalized. However, the county staff has shared this with the county commissioners, and this is public information. So therefore, I thought it would be a good time to share this information with the city council so you are up to speed with the information and all the issues related to it, so that if you do have anybody from the public or have discussions with the commissioners, you have firsthand information on this topic. We are, even last week, our countywide planning group met to discuss some changes that are being discussed at the county commissioner level. So as I mentioned, it's still in progress, but I will give you the latest information as best as I can tonight. With that, we'll jump into it. We've covered this in our previous discussions at the joint workshop that we had with the Planning Commission, but I'll go over it quickly just for all the new members on the City Council. So the countywide planning policies, they're referred to in the acronym CWPP or CPP. We are tending more towards the CPP because that's how the state is addressing it. However, our current document has it mentioned as CWPP. They are the same. So just wanted to clarify that when you're reviewing that document. This is a requirement of the Growth Management Act as listed in RCW 3670A. And the GMA requires that the counties that are subjected to this GMA adopt these countywide planning policies, and that they be developed in cooperation with the municipalities within that county. So this is a joint effort, and everybody needs to agree to it in order for it to become a policy that we can act on. The countywide planning policies have been adopted for Island County back in the 90s. We've had several amendments to it as we have updated our comprehensive plans. As you can see, there's 5 or 6 amendments that we did to this document. And this document prescribes the procedures for updating these policies, as well as how jurisdictions do their comprehensive plan amendments, and how do we do land capacity analysis, when do we do UGA expansions, etc. So I'm sorry, I jumped into the presentation and I didn't even share my screen, which I should have done, but I think Mikhail's on it. I apologize for that. So the countywide planning policies state that a county planning group needs to be formed, representatives from every jurisdiction, to review the countywide planning policies prior to the update. So that's what the staff has done. They have been meeting for the last 6 to 8 months. A really good group of people that are meeting almost twice a month and sometimes more to work out all the technical details and go through all of the changes that you see in that draft document that's in your packet. So the countywide, we're expecting to have some actions come forward to you, and I'll discuss this in a couple slides in terms of what we're currently aiming to do in terms of population and actually adopting the countywide planning policies. So this countywide planning group, when we first got together and started looking at these amendments, we discussed how we want to approach these amendments. One of the main reasons why we have the countywide planning policy is so that we have consistency between all jurisdictions. So we definitely wanted to achieve that. We definitely want to look at practical growth related modifications. We knew that with this update, there would be housing allocations and there would be potential UGA expansion discussions. So we wanted it to be practical, so we looked at the language to make sure that policies in there provide for a practical discussion of where and how growth should happen. And the GMA's one of the primary goals is to promote growth in urban areas and discourage growth in rural areas. And so we wanted to make sure we incorporate that philosophy into the countywide planning policies. And lastly, we knew that a lot of the requirements that are placed on the counties and the jurisdictions are fairly new. These are not time-tested requirements that we're asked to consider. These are very new concepts, and so we have to start somewhere, and we have to learn as we go, and that's why we have these frequent updates. Every 8 years, 10 years, and I consider them frequent for a comprehensive plan because usually comprehensive plans or long-range plans are a span of 20 to 40 years, but we update our plans here every 7, 8, or 10 years, which is actually pretty frequent. And so we learn and we have to adapt as we go, but we need to make some changes and we have to start somewhere. So that was the kind of approach that this group had. And the scope of amendments, what did we cover through the amendment process? One, we wanted to address the terminologies and update. Again, it's just a consistency issue to try and make sure that the terminologies used in the countywide planning policies is also used in the county plans and so on. So we wanted to make sure that there's consistency. Again, as I mentioned, practical growth-related policies. There were some statements in there about when urban areas or UGA growth is considered, that natural areas or wetlands in critical areas are not considered. However, we're trying to change that because those could be barriers. We wanted to make sure that as the city grows, that there are open spaces and natural areas included within the city because those are essential amenities that future citizens of the city could enjoy. And so we looked at policies to try and make sure that we can accommodate those and that they don't become barriers to reasonable growth. We also knew that we had a new tool to work with, and this is a state provided tool for housing, and I'll go over this a little bit more in detail in a couple slides. And so we had to accommodate the methodology for that and how we as a jurisdiction are going to deal with that. And so that is in addition to the countywide planning policies for this update. Next slide. So one of the major highlights as we move forward is all of the jurisdictions agreeing on a population. So this is stated already in the countywide planning policies, the existing policies, with direction given that the county should aim to choose the medium population that is projected by the Office of Financial Management. And when our countywide planning group or technical group looked at it, there was no reason to choose other than the medium. There was no reason to go lower because we knew that we were growing at a steady pace and that the lower projection would not keep up with the pace of growth. And there was no reason to really choose the higher one because there was no real substantial increase in any jurisdiction, or there was no expansion in the base. Again, we have a liaison from the Navy that participates in the countywide planning group and is part of this discussion and doesn't anticipate any major shifts in any of their operations. And so there was no reason to really consider the high, and the medium seemed to fit with the steady progression of growth that Island County experiences. And so this is something that the countywide planning policies state that the county will adopt, and then all the cities will have to ratify it. So since the existing policies provide guidance in choosing the medium, and since the staff didn't see any reason to shift from that, the Island County Board of Commissioners actually adopted this resolution for the median population of 102,639 for 2045. And we will be bringing forward a resolution to ratify this population if the council is comfortable with that. At the February meeting, we're taking it through the Planning Commission in January this month, and we will get their recommendation and their input on it, and we will bring it forward to the City Council. So that is one of the things, steps that we have to consider during this entire process, and this will be coming forward to you in February. The other big highlight for the amendments, the countywide planning policy update, is the 20-year housing allocation for Oak Harbor. So in the past years, population was the way that allocations were divided. In the existing comprehensive plan, the county adopts a population, and then they allocate a certain percentage of population to North Whidbey, and then South Whidbey and Camino. And then there are shares within that north and south line in terms of how much is going to be in rural and how much is going to be within the city. And it was just done with population numbers only. Now the state has provided this tool, and primarily, as you all know, that housing is a big issue in Washington. There's a shortage of housing throughout the region, and all jurisdictions are finding ways to try and accommodate the growth that Washington is going to experience in 20 years, especially the housing demand. And so the state has provided this tool, a simple spreadsheet that gives you the option to select a population. And then if you look at this table, on the left side, there is a blue input percentage. And so this is something that Island County and the jurisdictions have worked on in assigning these percentages. And these percentages then distribute the housing units for each jurisdiction. So, and within all this housing units, the state has also said that we need housing in various income levels. So they didn't just say you need, X number of units. They said you have to then provide housing units in various income levels. And this is, again, as I said, this is a new thing. This is not a time-tested tool that's used around the planning world and around the country that we can see other states or cities using this type of tool. This is something very new. And I think California was a state that is trying to implement something like this, and now Washington has picked up on this tool. So this is something new that all jurisdictions are dealing with, and of course we're going to have to try and make this work as we do our comprehensive plan amendment or update for the 2025. So as you can see, and we'll come back to this table for more details, I will go through some graphs here to kind of show what these numbers mean. But I'll give you a little short kind of synopsis on how we arrived at these percentages on the left-hand side. So traditionally or historically, most of the growth in Island County has gone in the county. So if you look at the historical trend, 60% of the population is actually going to the county, which is against all of GMA's rules and all of the RCAs that relate to comprehensive planning for cities and counties. And so the countywide planning group took a really close look at it and looked at how was it possible to try and make this adjustment, and how can we justify that? And we looked at, instead of going with the historical trend and just keeping that, because that will push a lot of the growth to the county, and the county doesn't have sometimes the services or the land use distribution to support a lot of the low-income type housing and the density that would be needed to provide for this. We looked at allocating these percentages based on jobs and employment. And of course, because of the base being close to Oak Harbor, we thought that including that into Oak Harbor's population would be the best way to address that. And so by taking into account jobs and employment and reasoning that housing should be provided close to employment centers, we were able to take census information and generate a formula that provided these percentages. So this is a change from the trend. And it pushes more growth into Oak Harbor, as GMA and the state wants us to do, and kind of reverses the trend. And we need, like I said at the beginning, we need to start somewhere in order to make these changes. And this is kind of where we thought this change would be most effective. So by assigning these percentages, this tool automatically calculates along these jurisdictions in terms of how many units should be provided in each of these income categories. So if you look at that bottom line for Oak Harbor, it has the existing total of 10,057 units. That's OFM's estimation on the number of units that we have in Oak Harbor. And through this allocation, 5,533 units are being allocated to Oak Harbor. That is further split into all of the income AMIs, average or area medium income, in terms of housing distribution. So we have about 626 in the public supported housing, and we have about 1,127 in the 30 to 50 AMI, 960 in the 50 to 80, and so on. So those are just numbers, and so how can we look at it in I'm a very visual person, so I'm going to share with you some visual ways that I look at it. So what you're seeing is the existing housing stock, and this is the 10,057 units. So if we look at the unit distribution based on the current distribution of these various AMIs, this is approximately the graph that you get. And as you can see, most of Oak Harbor's housing fits in the 50 to 80 AMI. And we have very little in the 0 to 30, and 30 to 50 has a little more than that, but we're pretty good on the 50 to 80 and 80 to 100. We're low on the 100 to 120, and above the 120, we have a substantial number of units. So this is just the current existing stock. So how does the proposed allocation look like? Next slide, please. So this is the 5,533 units that are being assigned. This is the numbers that I was reading out in the table. So what does that distribution look like? And as you can see, there's a lot more allocated to I'll combine the 0 to 50 because the state is starting to look at them as one category and splitting the 0 to 30 for very specific supportive housing. So what's happening is, from the previous slide, you know that the 0 to 50 was low in number, and with this housing allocation, Oak Harbor is being allocated a larger number of affordable units, basically. We still get a substantial number of 50 to 80, and the distribution between the 80 to 100, 120 is somewhat the same, and above 120, we still have a lot of housing that's been allocated to that segment of housing. So how does it compare? So next slide, please. So this is the comparison between our existing stock and the 20-year allocation. So what does it do for every segment of the AMI? So for the 0 and 30, we currently have 465 approximate units that are in the 0 to 30 category. We're being assigned 1,158. That's a 150% increase. Same with the 30 to 50. That's almost doubling the unit count in that AMI category. So that's almost 100% increase. And then the rest of them are less than 100%, but 25, 24, 60, and 74. And so as I mentioned, this is definitely a change from the growth trend that we've been seeing in Island County. And this housing allocation tool allows for these changes to happen with a conscious decision of trying to make sure that most of the housing densities are provided in urban environment. So next slide, in terms of how does it look if we were able to provide for the housing that's been allocated? So on the left, you see that's the current housing stock, the 10,000 or so units that we have currently. And if we achieve our allocations in 20 years or so, how would the graph look like? And that's what's to the right. And it seems a little more reasonable. It's starting to get a little more stacked on top of each other, a little more distributed towards all income ranges, which is what you want to do in housing. Is when you want to have choices, you want to have choices in all income categories and all affordability categories. And so I think that we're trying to achieve that by trying to boost the numbers where we have them low in the 0 to 30 and 30 to 50. And so those numbers will start to get higher. And so as we go into the future years, hopefully this will become a little more evenly distributed throughout the years. So, so what is the next steps in terms of this? So as I mentioned, this document is still under works. We are making some more changes. The commissioners are requesting more changes to this document, but like I said, the population, the Island County commissioners have already adopted the population count of 102,639, and we'll be bringing forward a resolution to ratify that if council is comfortable with that. And we're hoping to bring a fully amended countywide planning policy document, and I have a copy of the current version of it in your report. There will be some slight changes and modifications to it, and I will point those changes out to you when we come back with a new document. Hopefully we can work through that in the month of February and March. And so this is where the current status is, and what I'd like to hear from council is what do you think about these numbers? What do you think about these allocations? So that we can take information back to the countywide planning group and provide our input in terms of how this moves forward. So with that, I'd like to open up the floor for discussions, questions, and comments.
All right, council, so who would like to go first? Councilmember Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, a lot to take in. Thanks for that, CAC. And we've known this was coming around the corner, right? I mean, we've been, working on our densities and, revising our codes, knowing that we were going to have to accept more density as we move forward. I guess my comments are, I'm just going to have to put it out there. This is a 50% increase over the next 20 years. 50% increase of the size of our city is what is being projected by the Office of Financial Management. It's not something that we're just making up. This is coming from the state level, and quite frankly, we've got to figure out how to deal with it together with the county. Challenges we have, right? Expansion to the north is not likely, not unless the Navy plans to start changing their flight patterns and those things. Expansion to the east, again, we're up against military property. Expansion to the south, we have our lovely bay, which unless we're going to start going some floating homes, I know we've been talking about floating that idea. And then, we attempted to expand to the west, but we have a watershed out there that is being protected. And so it leaves the southwest quadrant of our city, right, the southwest quadrant, to expand our city by 50%. Now, the reality is, we're going to get this mapped out. We're going to figure it out. We're going to work with the county, on figuring out the expansion of our JPA, which, then we'll look at the UGA lines. And there's a natural progression for that. I guess the concern I have, CAC, that to take back is where are we going to put all the businesses to support 50% more population? That's I think the challenge we're going to have in front of us. I mean, the quality of life in a community is only as good as the businesses supporting that community. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to pack another 50% people in here and not add any additional grocery stores? You're not going to add any additional services? What is Walmart going to double in size? They couldn't even do that if they wanted to on the space they've got. So that's the concern I guess I've got, and I know the housing numbers are something we're going to be focusing on here over the next few months, because those are the numbers, of course, that are set down by the state, right? It's the mandate to provide housing and provide housing in these certain categories, but the state doesn't send down the mandate of supplying businesses to go along to support those households. That's not part of the state discussion, so that's got to be part of our discussion as long-range planners and understanding the needs of the people in our community as the community grows, the needs for businesses and services are also going to grow. And that's where I'm at a loss for just even imagining or picturing where that would go. You know, a lot of us thought, you know, that'd be Highway 20 is the natural extension, you know, to continue the commercial corridor. But, you know, Conservation Futures has taken away a fairly sizable hunk of that. What 75 acres from the
23.
23 acres from the last acquisition, you know, and that creates a little bit of a roadblock, because now we kind of got to leapfrog and work around that. So I know long comments, CAC, but you asked for them. That's my concern is the business side of it, and I know we've got to work through this housing side first, but you know, hopefully we can start talking about that too, because that is certainly going to be a challenge.
Absolutely, and if I can respond, that is on our minds as staff as well. If we're going to increase our unit count by 50%, we need to have the commercial space, commercial activity to support that, like you said, whether it's an extra grocery store or any other services that the extra 5,000 units will need. And also green space and open space. So we need to think about all of the land uses and not just housing. Housing is just one factor, as you mentioned, that the state is requiring us to look at. But we have, at least in the countywide planning group, definitely talked about the other land uses, even though they are not specifically stated. We will be looking at those when we look at our land capacity. So definitely a point taken and will be considered along with other land uses.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer.
Yeah, you know, as somebody who has spent their life in the trades, you know, and I don't know that this necessarily fits in the countywide plan, but there needs to be a countywide plan for it. You know, I have talked with Commissioner St. Clair and have talked with Rep. Paul about this, and you know, it's well known that there's a need. If we want these numbers to be anything more than a pipe dream, we have to get real serious about building our workforce here. You know, we are so far removed from the I-5 corridor and so far removed from skilled laborers that's one of the main hindrances to economic development right now. So whether it's internship programs or whether it's trade schools or whether it's telling our youth that it's okay to go to a trade school to be an electrician or to be a plumber. And, you know, I know electricians and plumbers that make more than the doctors that I know. Pretty wild, but it's true. So that's something we need to get a countywide plan going for as well. And that's the main thing that's holding up a lot of growth right this second. So thank you, CAC. Thanks for the rest of that.
Councilmember Stuckey.
Before I dive into my thoughts, why isn't Clinton, if I'm correct, a UGA? Oh, but so is Freeland.
Yeah, I think they're called RAIDs, Rural Area Intensive Developments. And maybe not, I don't have a good answer to that, but I can only take guesses.
Okay. Just seems to me if Freeland, which has not too far population off of Clinton, I don't understand why Clinton couldn't be a UGA as well, and neither of them are incorporated, although I know Freeland has the sewer issues. So first and foremost, we need to make sure that we are involved. Like I said, I went to that commissioners meeting. It was very eye-opening. You asked me 3 years ago, I couldn't tell you what UGA stands for, and I'm by no means an expert now, but I know a heck of a lot more than I did then. And it was very clear to me that we need to be involved. If we think that this amount of growth is more than we can sustain, we definitely need to be opinionated and make our voices heard. I watched the verbal battle between Commissioner Bacon and Johnson, and it was eye-opening. On the one hand, you have the South End, who is very much about their open green spaces. They very much like their open land, and I understand that. But they're asking us to increase substantially, and a lot of that in the low income, the 0 to 30 AMI. It's basically saying, you know, if you're someone who's low income, you can live up there, right? People are going to live up here and drive down there? Maybe, but then why not go to Mount Vernon? It's important to remember that this is a plan. we need to strive for it, but it doesn't mean if we fall short, we're all of a sudden fined or something like that. So it's scary when you hear 5,500 units, but realize if we don't get there, we don't get there. We need to make a good faith effort. And we need people to build the homes, as Hoffmeyer was alluding to. I mean, our job is to make the right environment, to make it welcoming, and to get people to have homes of all sizes, but we can't build it. If I can say anything, it's just we need to be involved, because I think 5,500 homes in Oak Harbor, housing units, excuse me, is way too ambitious. That would drastically change our landscape, and we are going to change a little bit, but I think that we can work with the county to get that number changed a little bit, knowing we're still going to have to take the lion's share, but 63%, when you compare, this is all of Island County, Camano too, and they want us to take 63%. We need our voices to be heard by them so we can get that down a little bit and then figure out how to do it. So like, that's what my crux was with having a meeting with the commissioners. I think that we can get that adjusted if we make sure to show up, not just sit here and say some words. We need to be active. Thank you.
If I can add or respond to that, I want to
please.
I want to point out, if I can, I'll share my screen with this table again. And I think in some of the discussions with the commissioners, at least being in the countywide planning group, they had some discussions on whether too much of growth is being pushed into UGAs and whether the county should take on a little more of the growth. And so the county commissioners sent this table, which is currently that, you know, and nothing has been modified yet, even in the countywide planning group. They sent it back to the staff to say, relook at the numbers and come back to us. And so the countywide planning group looked at it, and we actually contacted the state and said, what is your guidance in terms of, you know, these distributions? And the state actually said that they want all of the 0 to 50 AMI units to be in some sort of UGA and not in the rural areas. So I think there is a House bill that's currently being worked on. It's not approved yet, but which seems to state that all of the 0 to 50 needs to go into some sort of a UGA, which if that is the case, then the numbers that you see that are being allocated in Island County, now the non-municipal UGA, which is what Freeland is, could take probably some of these numbers. But if the state really pushes on Island County to move some of those 0 to 50 AMI into UGAs, you can potentially see an increase to this 5,000 or 5,533 units, especially in the 0 to 50. So there is potential for this number to change based on the state recommendation, but however, the commissioners are thinking very different. So currently, the countywide planning group is keeping things status quo because there is housing allocated to Island County. But we're hoping that the state is acceptable with these numbers and they don't push too hard to require these numbers be in the UGA. And if so, I may be coming back in February and March and kind of showing you some different numbers. There's potential for that. But however, from all the technical aspects, we think these numbers are good as they stand. Again, this is a learn as you go type scenario. And as Councilmember Stuckey mentioned, this is, we have to just show that we can accommodate this growth. We don't really have to achieve these numbers. We don't get fined for those. And of course, 5-8 years down the road, with any policy that we adopt now, we'll have a chance to review it and make changes. So I know this is a big shift, but again, change has to happen somewhere, and this is just the beginning or just the start of it. So just wanted to share with you some of the discussions that are still ongoing and the potential for change. And you're right, the workforce is a big issue. I thought about that. I'm like, how are we going to actually find the workforce to really accomplish that? And I think the whole housing industry is gearing up for that in all jurisdictions. I looked at our current development proposals that we have going on in Oak Harbor. All the ones that we have pre-application processes, and we have currently in the review of civil plans or some sort of permit application process. And combining the pre-app and what's going through our permit, we have about 900 plus units in the pipeline today. So if you really project that into the 20-year horizon, I think we have the capacity to process it, at least as a city, to review these developments and consider them. We definitely have the facilities and the utilities and the new sewer plant that can accommodate that growth. It's just that whether we, as council members have mentioned, do we have the workforce to try and do that? So it's an exciting kind of horizon, and this can definitely change the face of Oak Harbor in terms of how it looks and how it operates. So I think this is a great opportunity, and we're all jurisdictions are updating their comprehensive plan, right? So we are using these numbers, or we would all be using numbers that come out of this document to do our 20-year plan. And so that kind of sets the consistency between all jurisdictions. By the way, I want to throw a pitch here. All the jurisdictions in Island County have applied for a grant to update the comprehensive plan, and all jurisdictions have been given grant money, so all of us are hiring consultants. We have put out an RFQ, and we have, the deadline was last Friday. We've got about 10 proposals, and I was going to request and see if any council member would be interested in reviewing these qualifications and be part of the selection process. I think it's a big step for Oak Harbor, and it'll be good to have representation from the city council while we hire consultants to do this process. So if by the end of the meeting, if anybody wants to volunteer, or if the council wants to choose a member to appoint for this purpose, we'd appreciate it and would welcome the input.
So, because obviously I've stated my thoughts, but I'd like to hear from my other fellow council members. I mean, how do you feel about the goal? We understand it's a goal, 5,500 homes. Do you think it's doable? Do you think it's equitable? Do you think it's fair? I'd like to hear that particular number. I mean, we all know we need more workforce and all that, but what do we think about that?
Councilmember Arms.
Well, I personally think it's too much, but I don't know what we're going to be able to do about it. My problem too is our infrastructure. You know, yes, we have a sewer plant, but you know, we already have aging pipes. Now we're going to put more burden on trying to get those done, trying to get more piping done. And if you've seen the traffic lately, it's getting a little congested around here. I mean, it used to be you could just whiz by, and now you're like, wow, there's a lot of people around here. This is winter. Wait till summer. And we do not have the roadway to accommodate these people. I mean, hello. I mean, you go out of town or come into town, around 5 o'clock, it's nonstop. So that's the other thing. I mean, how are we all going to get to where we need to get? Plus, you know, we don't have the facilities. We go to Anacortes for the hospitals. We have Whidbey Hospital. We don't have the doctors. We don't have a lot of these things that people need when they come here. Where are you going to do all these things? And I think it's putting an undue burden on the people that are here. But that's just my opinion.
Next, Councilmember Wiesner.
Thank you. Well, it's going to be a huge challenge, right? I mean, you talk about workforce, you talk about obviously the commercial side of things. You know, I mean, part of it's going to come down to the amount of land that the county's going to free up for us, right, to expand into. In order to create affordable housing, you need two things. You need land to build it on that's fairly inexpensive, and you need typically some sort of a tax base to help subsidize it, right? And that tax base typically has come from, a strong commercial corridor, right? So, but I also think that once again, we're kind of a victim of, the Growth Management Act and its broad brush, right? We are a unique county. We have a lot of square miles with only 3 incorporated cities. One of the incorporated cities is encumbered by a conservation area, the EB's Reserve, right? And so they actually get a special exemption from this because of the reserve. The other incorporated town is a very small town, and since they can't require them to increase their population by more than 60%, they get a little bit of a pass too, right? And yet the city of Oak Harbor is also encumbered. We're encumbered by the military base. We're encumbered by the flight zone, the ACU zones, the accident potential zones, right? Yet there's nothing taken in consideration for that, right? A county with a whole lot of square miles, with only 3 incorporated cities, 2 of them encumbered, right? And one of them with a population, what, 700? Well, that's what I'm saying. Camino is included in the reference I'm saying. There's nothing on Camino that's incorporated, right? And so all that square mileage on Camino is not included in the incorporated. Now, granted, we've got the raids and stuff, but the raids were all built around existing developments that already existed at the time of the Growth Management Act, and granted there was some infill that's taken place, but that infill has taken place over 24 years. Those raids are pretty well filled out, so those raids were already pretty well built out when they were developed as raids. And there is no expansion of those raids within the GMA, right? You can't take a raid and just say, hey, we're going to expand it like we would a city. You can't build an artificial UGA or JPA around a raid. The raid is the raid. So I do think it's a conversation we need to have with our legislators when we're down in Olympia and point out, again, the idiosyncrasies of our county that make it a lot different. Let's face it, the Growth Management Act is mainly pointed towards Western Washington. Eastern Washington is, highly unaffected by it. Western Washington, when you think of it, you're thinking of Marysville, you're thinking of Arlington, you're thinking of Bellingham, you're thinking of Seattle, right? And those are the areas, Black Diamond, which has just grown significantly, right? Those are the areas that GMA is targeted towards. And that's the area where the GMA board sits, and that's the area where most of the input is taken for these regulations that are coming along. And that's not us. We don't fit into that category. And I really think that's a conversation we need to have. If the purpose of this is to protect the rural areas of our state, which is what the Growth Management Act was designed for, they have to understand that just because we're an incorporated city doesn't mean we're not rural, because we certainly are compared to those other cities I've named. And so I would suggest certainly bringing our state legislators in, pointing out that conversation. I don't know that it's going to change the numbers at all. I think we're still going to face challenges. But as we move through this, like CAC had mentioned, they're going to continue to tweak this. There's going to continue to be bills, and there's going to continue to be riders on bills that are going to affect this. And there's going to be money that's going to have to flow, and there's going to have to be exemptions that are going to have to flow, and there's going to have to be changes or tweaks to the actual GMA to maybe allow commercial development in areas where it wouldn't have been allowed before. And so we've got to kind of be that squeaky wheel. Otherwise, this plan could actually end up becoming true. I mean, let's face it, we're all going in this plan going, there's no way that we can handle another 5,500 homes, that we can grow 50% in the next 20 years. If you look back at the last 20 years, I don't know what our population growth was, but it certainly wasn't 50% or anywhere near it. I can't imagine it being, since 2003, I imagine our population growth has probably been somewhere around maybe 10 or 12%, and I'm just pulling that out of thin air, but I just from the feel of it, I imagine that's where we're at. And so to think that over the next 20 we're going to go 50, we're all kind of probably sitting here going, well, this is never going to happen, nothing to worry about. But the reality is, if these are numbers we accept, then we're going to have to live with them. And so now is the time to probably be having those conversations with the people down in Olympia. Make sure they understand, we are not Arlington, we are not Marysville, we are not Bellingham. And we do have some restrictions upon what we can do with the land surrounding us because of our major employer that quite frankly drives the north end of the island.
Thank you, Councilmember Wiesmer. Councilmember Hoffmeyer.
Yeah, it's a good question Councilor Stuckey asked there. You know, I think, gosh, 20 years, probably not. I think it's more of a 50-year number. And this isn't intended to be said with any hostility, but the state has to figure out what it is that they want. The state puts all these rules and regulations in place, every rule and regulation imaginable to stifle growth. And then they provide the funding to put the land around us in conservation. So do they want us to grow or not? That is what we need to find out. And if that is a 20-year number, it's not going to happen without the state changing quite a few laws. So that's what we need to find out from the people in Olympia, like you said. And with regards to the RFQ thing, I would be more than happy to help with it. But I think there are several other council members that might as well if they have time. So anyway.
Thank you, Councilmember Hoffmeyer. Anyone else? All right, with that, thank you, CAC, for your presentation. We are going to, at this time, the City Council will move into an executive session to discuss with legal counsel litigation or potential litigation per RCW 4230-110-1I. Estimated duration is 15 minutes. Prior to this, though, we're going to take a 5-minute bathroom break, and then we'll go ahead into executive session.
Nolan.
All right, we have now come out of executive session. No action will be taken at this time regarding the matter discussed. There will be no further business. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I motion we adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn, seconded. All in favor, raise your right hand. So be it. We are adjourned at 8:44.